Hey, Dad from dadtricks.com here, and this week we are going to talk about weird state-specific holidays while we make this cocktail called the Ward 8, which is from Boston. And the Ward 8 is like the Boston version of a Manhattan. We're going to put that one together, and then we're going to talk about it, the weird holidays that go on up there. Because there's one coming up on Monday, and that would be Patriots Day. So we're going to start with 2 ounces of rye. I'm just going to use my standard redemption rye. We're going to put it into this shaker that's full of ice. And then we're going to go with 1 ounce of lemon juice. So yeah, Boston's a little bit weird. I think up there what they did was at some point, now we're just going to add an ounce of orange juice. At some point, what they decided was they needed to have a holiday basically for every single month so that everybody would get at least a day off every month. So they just started coming up with these holidays, weird holidays. Half an ounce of grenadine. This is my homemade grenadine, which means it's real grenadine made from pomegranates and not those red sugar water things you find in the store. And then you shake it up. And while we're shaking this up, since I forgot to get my glass, let's get that. And we're going to need some ice. Nice and cold. There we go. I can feel the seal breaking. Here we go. Let's get a piece of ice out of here. It's going to not be easy. There we go. Sometimes the ice gets stuck in here. I don't know why. It's just ice. And we'll grab a strainer. Strain it out. That, my friends, is the Ward 8. So, Boston. Weird holidays. So like I said, I think basically what happened is they just started looking around, and one thing was they needed to want to get a day off every month. And then the other thing was I think they started looking at some of the other, like holidays that aren't holidays and said, well, how can we get those days off? So the big one coming up on Monday, the third Monday in April every year is Patriots Day. Patriots Day is supposed to be so that you can celebrate and remember the battles of Lexington and Concord, because they happened on April 19th, 1775, that's when Paul Revere went riding through Boston and basically did not make it all the way out to Lexington and Revere. Actually got stopped and captured by the British on his way out there. But he's the one who's the famous one. And then there were 2 other riders, a female who no one remembers her name, and another guy. And they were the ones who actually made it all the way out there to Lexington and Concord to warn the militias of the rebels that the British Army was coming to take their guns. So they decided, let's make Patriots Day. Well, why do we have Patriots Day? And why is it on the third Monday in April? Because the third Monday in April isn't always April 19th, right? Well, what is the third Monday in April in Boston? Oh, that's right, the Boston Marathon. So if you've ever been to Boston for the Boston Marathon, you know that it starts all the way out in Hopkinton, which is, roughly 26.3 miles from Boston, from Kenmore Square, which is basically where, actually Copley Square, which is where the marathon ends. It basically travels, all the way through all those towns, gets into Boston. The problem is once you get into Boston, it goes right down Commonwealth Ave. Commonwealth Ave is one of the main streets in Boston, so you can't get around real easily in Boston during the marathon. So I think that's part of the reason why they came up with it and said, hey, let's make Patriots Day on the third Monday in April. just simply because no one can get around the city anyway. The Red Sox play at 11 o'clock in the morning. That's their Patriots Day game. If the Bruins are actually in the playoffs, which they're not this year, but if they're in the playoffs, usually they have a playoff game at home at some point on the 19th, usually in the afternoon. So they usually do like a 5 o'clock thing, so that what you can do is go down, you watch the Red Sox play, you come out of Fenway at roughly about the same time that the winners are coming across the finish line down in Copley Square, and you go down to Copley Square and you watch the winners go by, or you just walk out of Fenway and you just head over to Kenmore Square, which is closer, and watch the runners go by there. So that's Patriots Day. Patriots Day is actually celebrated throughout the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts. These other two are only celebrated in Suffolk County, which is Boston. But the thing is, if you work for the state, because Boston is the capital of the Commonwealth, if you work for the state, no matter where you work in Massachusetts, you could be working out in Springfield, you could be up in Leominster, you could be out in Great Barrington. If you're working for the state, you're going to get these 2 days off. So the first one is Evacuation Day. Evacuation Day celebrates the fact that in 1776, the British Army, after realizing that the Continentals had put cannons up on Dorchester Heights where they could look down and basically bombard the city, evacuated Boston. So they marched out of Boston in the dark of night. What day did they do that on? Miraculously, on March 17th. Now, we talked a couple of weeks ago about what St. Patrick's Day is like here in Savannah. It's pretty much the same in Boston. So again, I don't think most of these people really care that it's Evacuation Day. They don't celebrate the fact that the British Army, with their tail tucked between their legs, left Boston on March 17th, 1776. It was just a whole bunch of guys sitting around, probably at the State House, probably at Boston City Hall, and going, how are we going to get St. Patrick's Day off? We can't have a holiday called St. Patrick's Day. No, we got to come up with something, and what they came up with was Evacuation Day. So that's how they get the 17th off, how they get St. Patrick's Day off. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at Savannah, St. Patrick's Day in Savannah and in Georgia is not like an official holiday, but pretty much if you are a business that is not a bar, a restaurant, a hotel, that is downtown Savannah, that's in the historic district, you're going to be closed because there is no way to get to you during the St. Patrick's Day parade. Because during the St. Patrick's Day parade, the main street that basically splits downtown is completely closed off because that's the route of the parade. So essentially, everyone shuts down in Savannah anyway, whether it's a holiday or not. They just call it a day off. They send everybody home. Everybody gets to go down to the parade. We've talked about that. Well, it's kind of the same thing in Boston, I think, although probably not as bad because in Boston, it's just southy. It's not like the parade is like the marathon going down Commonwealth Ave. It's in South Boston, which, cuts off South Boston from the rest of the city. But South Boston's pretty much cut off from the rest of the city anyway, because there's only I think 2 or 3 bridges that get you over there because you got to go over the inland rivers. The last one that happens in Massachusetts. So remember what I said. They had to sit down and figure out how do we get a day off every month, at least one holiday every month. So, you got New Year's, you got Martin Luther King Day in January. February, you got President's Day, which basically becomes a whole week off because that's winter break for the school kids. March, Evacuation Day. Again, only in Suffolk County, which is Boston and Chelsea. And then you get into April, you get Patriots Day, and Patriots Day pretty much falls it ends up being the same week as spring break. So either, Easter most times ends up at the start of the Sunday before Patriots Day, or it's the end of that week. So that, that's spring break. May, you got Memorial Day. Now we come to June. So these guys are sitting around, they go, what are we going to do with June? There's no holidays in June, and can we really go all the way from Memorial Day to July 4th? I mean, what is that? That's 5 weeks? I mean, that's just way too much time. We got to have a day off somewhere in here. So what did they do? They said, well, you know what? The Battle of Bunker Hill happened on June 17th. So hey, let's have Bunker Hill Day. And like I said, Bunker Hill Day is just like Evacuation Day. It's only celebrated in Suffolk County, Boston, and Chelsea. But again, you work for the state government in the Commonwealth, you're going to get the day off. So this was great when I was a paramedic and I worked for the University of Massachusetts EMS system, because we didn't get the days off because we have to work 24/7. But what we did was we got extra pay on those days, to offset the fact that we had holidays. But we basically had, I think it's like 14 or 15 holidays through the year. That's the way it all worked out because we were state employees. So, and then you get into July 4th. Then it's weird because apparently no one could come up with anything for August. So August in Massachusetts is the only month that doesn't have some kind of holiday in it. But of course, then your Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and you get to run out the year. Now, Massachusetts, the Commonwealth, is not the only weird state that has weird holidays. There are other states. Rhode Island, actually, I believe Rhode Island also celebrates Patriots Day. There are some weird ones up in Maine that I can't remember off the top of my head what they are right now. But here in Georgia, besides the fact that in Savannah we shut down for St. Patrick's Day, we also have in Savannah, mostly, although it is a Georgia state holiday, it's called Georgia Day. And it happens on February 12th of every year. And what it is there for is it is to celebrate the day that Georgia was founded on February 12th, 1733, when General James Oglethorpe landed his ships down on the Savannah River at Yamacraw Bluff, met with Chief Tomachichi of the Yamacraw Indians, who said, hey, come on, this is a great place, you should settle here. And then basically settled here and started building everything downtown, all the squares, everything in the historic district. So, just the Ward 8, cheers to all these weird holidays. If you celebrate, if you're going to be watching the marathon on Monday, I hope you have fun with that. If you're gonna, you're up in Mass and you're gonna be at the marathon, I hope it's warm and it's not snowing. I know it snowed there this week. So the Ward 8 from Dad at daddrinks.com. Remember to go to daddrinks.com. Check out the merchandise. Check out the blog. The blog's going to have the entire recipe and a whole bunch of history behind it. And just cheers. Please hit like and subscribe, and visit daddrinks.com for recipes, merchandise, and more fun stuff.